As the sleek shuttle docked with the humming space station orbiting the neutral planet of Xanthus, Dr. Alex Reed peered out at the swirl of starships and transports from countless civilizations. The International Intergalactic Conference was a conglomerate of the galaxy's finest minds, and this was Earth's debut. "I still can't believe they picked me for this," Alex muttered, adjusting his translator device. Beside him, his colleague, Dr. Marcus Lee, grinned, clapping him on the back. "Who else, Alex? You're one of the best problem solvers we've got. Just remember, everyone here was alien to each other once." The cabin door hissed open, and they stepped into the bustling arrival bay. Aliens of various sizes and colors milled about, their conversations a symphony of the galaxy's diversity. The humans drew curious glances, some dismissive, others intrigued. Alex and Marcus made their way to the registration desk. A towering, crystalline creature greeted them with a melodic voice. "Welcome to the IIC. Name and planet?" "Dr. Alex Reed and Dr. Marcus Lee, Earth," Alex responded, his eyes taking in the creature's shimmering facets. "Ah, Earth. New participants. How exciting. Here are your badges. Your first session is in the Grand Auditorium. Enjoy your stay." They pinned the badges to their jackets and followed the signs to the auditorium. As they walked, Marcus leaned in. "See that group over there? Those are the Thalreen. Brilliant scientists, but I heard they're not too fond of newcomers." Alex followed his gaze to a group of slender, blue-skinned beings with bright, intelligent eyes. He swallowed his nerves. Maybe it's time to change that. They entered the Grand Auditorium just as the opening ceremony commenced. The room was a vast circle, the ceiling a transparent dome displaying the cosmos. Delegates filled the tiered seats, their attention fixed on the central podium where a distinguished-looking elder alien began the welcome speech. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Whispers filled the room as the holographic displays sputtered and died. The elder struggled with the malfunctioning technology, his voice now lost in the vast space. "Looks like they could use some help," Marcus noted, his voice low. Without a second thought, Alex approached the podium, signaling to the elder. Surprised but desperate, the elder stepped aside. Alex examined the hologram projector, his fingers deftly adjusting the connections while explaining over his shoulder. "It's usually a misalignment in the phase array or a power surge. Happens all the time with the old tech we use at the university." Within minutes, the system whirred back to life, the elder alien resuming his speech with a grateful nod toward Alex. As the crowd applauded the swift recovery, a voice behind Alex made him turn. It was one of the Thalreen, her gaze piercing yet not unkind. "I am Lyra, chief scientist of the Thalreen delegation. You have an interesting way of solving problems, Dr. Reed." Alex smiled, feeling a flicker of pride. "Thank you, Lyra. I guess sometimes a fresh perspective helps." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps you are right. It seems we may have underestimated Earth's contributions. Tell me, Dr. Reed, would you be interested in discussing your techniques further? Maybe over a meal?" Grateful for the opportunity, Alex agreed eagerly, sensing the opening of a door he hadn't even known was there. As they made plans, Marcus watched the exchange with a satisfied smile, realizing that this conference might just turn out to be more groundbreaking for Earth than they had anticipated. Chapter 2. The Challenge. The cafeteria on Deck 3 was a melting pot of interstellar cuisines and cultures, filled with the chatter of scientists and diplomats. Alex Reed and Marcus Lee sat at a small table by the panoramic window, their meal trays piled high with unfamiliar dishes. Outside, the gentle glow of Xanthus hung in space like a tiny lantern. Marcus leaned over his plate, eyeing the dish Alex had chosen. "Is that glowing?" "Don't ask me. The server said it was safe," Alex replied, jabbing his fork at the luminescent morsel. "Apparently it's a Thalreen delicacy." "Good luck with that," Marcus said, picking up a glass of something bright purple and sniffing it cautiously. "This conference is full of surprises." Before Alex could respond, a familiar voice interrupted. "Dr. Reed, Dr. Lee." They turned to see Lyra standing beside their table, Her pale blue skin seemed to shimmer under the overhead lights, and her eyes were keen, almost amused. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "Not at all," Alex said quickly, gesturing to the empty seat. As Lyra sat down, she folded her hands neatly on the table. "I've been reviewing some of your planet's methodologies. They're unorthodox." Alex smirked. "That's one way to put it. But effective," Lyra admitted. "In fact, I'd like to propose a friendly challenge." Marcus looked up from his purple drink. "What kind of challenge?" "A debate," Lyra said smoothly. "A structured exchange of ideas. I'll present a complex problem that we've been unable to solve, something theoretical, and you, Dr. Reed, will offer your solution. We'll see whose approach is more efficient." Alex glanced at Marcus, who shrugged. Then he turned back to Lyra. "Why me? You have a way of looking at problems differently," Lyra replied, her voice steady. "Your solution at the opening ceremony caught my attention. I'm curious to see how far your human ingenuity can go." "And what's the problem you have in mind?" Alex asked. Lyra hesitated for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "It involves synthesizing an energy matrix that can stabilize quantum fluctuations in a singularity field. In simple terms, we're trying to create a stable power source from an unstable environment." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound simple." "It's not," Lyra said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "But it's a challenge worth pursuing." Alex leaned back in his chair, considering. "So, you present the problem, I present a solution, and then what?" "We debate," Lyra said. "You defend your approach and I'll defend mine. The goal is to see which perspective yields the most viable path forward." "And if my solution works?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "If it works, then you'll have proven that there's more to humanity than most of us have assumed." Marcus glanced at Alex. "Sounds like a chance to make an impression." Alex nodded slowly. "All right, I'm in." "Excellent," Lyra said, rising from her seat. "We'll hold the debate tomorrow in conference room 7. Prepare your arguments." As she left, Alex turned to Marcus. "What have I gotten myself into?" "A chance to show them what humans are made of," Marcus said with a grin. "Come on, let's hit the research center. We've got a problem to solve." The two of them spent the next several hours in one of the station's laboratories, poring over alien data streams, running simulations, and brainstorming strategies. The room was filled with holographic projections and the hum of advanced machinery. Marcus brought up references from Earth's history of problem-solving, while Alex adapted the concepts to fit the alien parameters. "This is insane," Marcus said at one point, leaning back in his chair. "We're talking about stabilizing something that's inherently unstable. It's like trying to balance a spinning plate on a pin." "Exactly," Alex replied, typing furiously into a console. "That's why we need to approach it differently. Think about how we do it on Earth, layering systems using redundancy, leveraging feedback loops. What if we apply those principles to this energy matrix?" Marcus rubbed his chin. "It's a gamble. It's a challenge," Alex countered. "If we can show them that humans can think on their level or beyond, it could open doors we never imagined." They worked late into the station's artificial night cycle, occasionally pausing to bounce ideas off one another. Marcus suggested practical safeguards, while Alex refined the theoretical framework. By the end of the session, they had a working proposal. "You know," Marcus said, leaning back and stretching, "this could actually work." Alex grinned. "It has to. Tomorrow we show them what Earth can do." Chapter 3. Unlikely Alliance. The conference room was a hive of activity. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the chamber, their voices blending into a low hum of anticipation. The center stage, flanked by holographic displays, held a small dais where speakers would present their proposals. Lyra stood by the dais, reviewing her notes on a sleek tablet-like device that pulsed with faint light. Alex and Marcus entered the room together, their posture more confident than they felt. Alex clutched a bundle of printouts, a tangible piece of home among the swirling alien technology. Marcus carried a portable scanner they'd rigged up as a visual aid. Their eyes met briefly, and Marcus gave him a reassuring nod. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked under his breath as they approached the stage. "Not even slightly," Alex admitted. "But it's too late to back out now." Lyra glanced up and saw them approaching. "Ah, Dr. Reed, Dr. Lee, you're punctual. That's a good start." "Thank you," Alex said. "We've been working on a proposal. I hope you'll find it enlightening." Lyra arched a brow, her lips twitching in what might have been amusement. "We'll see. Let's take our places." The audience hushed as the session began. A mediator, a tall, four-armed alien with a shimmering silver mane, introduced the topic: advancing energy stability in volatile environments. Lyra spoke first, presenting the Thalrene approach. Her holographic diagrams floated above the dais, detailing complex mathematical models and intricate energy pathways. The audience murmured appreciatively, many nodding at the familiar elegance of her species' methods. When it was Alex's turn, he took a steadying breath and stepped forward. Marcus stood behind him, operating their makeshift scanner. Alex unfolded a large sheet of paper, displaying a hand-drawn diagram. It was crude compared to Lyra's sleek holograms, but it caught the audience's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex began, "and beings of countless other descriptions, my approach is unorthodox. My colleague and I come from a world where resources are often limited, and solutions must be creative, even simple." A ripple of surprise passed through the audience at his straightforwardness. Alex pointed to his diagram. "What you see here is a layered redundancy model. On Earth, we'd call it belt and suspenders. Instead of trying to perfectly balance the entire system at once, we divide it into smaller, interconnected modules. Each module compensates for the others if something goes wrong. It's not elegant, but it's robust." Marcus stepped in, projecting a rough animation from the scanner. It showed a hypothetical energy system stabilizing after a disturbance, the modular components compensating for the imbalance. "This concept is similar to something we've seen in our own industrial processes," he explained. "By keeping each segment manageable, you can address instability without risking total collapse." Lyra watched intently, her expression unreadable. Alex continued, "Our solution isn't about perfection. It's about finding a workable balance and maintaining it through cooperation between different parts of the system. This way, even in an unstable environment, you can sustain a functional, reliable output." When Alex finished, there was a moment of silence. Then scattered applause started. It wasn't as enthusiastic as the response Lyra had received, but it was genuine. Alex and Marcus exchanged a look. It wasn't a grand triumph, but it was a step forward. After the session, Lyra approached them. "An interesting approach," she said. "I must admit, your perspective is refreshingly different." "Different can be useful," Alex replied. "We weren't trying to impress, just solve the problem in a way we know how." "Perhaps I underestimated your methods," Lyra said. "Perhaps we all did." "Glad we could surprise you," Marcus added, offering a grin. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "I believe there's potential in combining our methods. My approach focuses on precision and control, yours on flexibility and adaptability. Together, they might yield results neither of us could achieve alone." Alex tilted his head. "You're suggesting a collaboration?" Lyra looked at him squarely. "Yes, if you're willing. Let's develop this proposal further, refine it, test it. I'll provide the resources and facilities of my delegation. You provide your ingenuity." Marcus glanced at Alex, who shrugged and then nodded. "We're in," Alex said. "Let's see what we can come up with." The three of them left the chamber, already discussing how to proceed. As they walked through the station's corridors, the initial tension between them began to ease. They exchanged ideas, joked about their respective technical quirks, and started to form the foundation of a team. By the time they reached the lab that Lyra had secured, the groundwork for their collaboration was in place. For the first time, Alex and Marcus felt like they belonged at this conference, not as outsiders but as equals. Together, they would tackle the challenges ahead, step by step, proving that the line between primitive and advanced was thinner than anyone had imagined. Chapter 4: Deepening Bonds. In the dim glow of the station's research lab, Alex sat on a stool, scribbling equations on a holographic pad. The faint hum of machinery blended with the quiet sounds of Marcus working at a nearby terminal. Lyra stood at the central console, reviewing the data from their latest simulation. The room was cluttered with alien devices, human-made tools, and various hybrid components they had rigged together in their effort to merge two distinct scientific approaches. "So," Marcus said, breaking the silence, "anyone else feel like we've been at this for days?" "It's been 12 hours, Lyra replied, her tone matter-of-fact. 12 hours? That's not as bad as I thought," Marcus admitted, taking a sip from his cup of earth coffee. "Still, I could use a break." Alex looked up from his pad. "You're not the only one, but we're making progress. That last run was closer to stable than any of our earlier attempts." "Closer, but not there yet," Lyra noted, folding her arms. "Your modular approach is intriguing, but we still need to refine the interconnections. The energy flow between modules is uneven." "I know," Alex said, standing and stretching his back. "I'm working on an algorithm to smooth it out. If we can." The overhead lights flickered, drawing everyone's attention. "Power fluctuation," Lyra said. "I'll check the load distribution." Marcus stood as well. "I'll help. Two heads are better than one." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Does that mean your head is better than mine?" Marcus laughed. "I meant it as a compliment. Let's see if we can stabilize this thing." As Lyra and Marcus worked on the console, Alex wandered over to the viewport. The stars outside seemed endless, a sea of light in the infinite darkness. He had never thought he'd find himself so far from Earth, let alone working with beings from across the galaxy. Yet here he was, not only contributing to a monumental project but also forming connections he hadn't anticipated. Lyra's voice brought him out of his thoughts. "Dr. Reed, your algorithm. How close are you to completing it?" "Almost there," Alex said, turning back to them. "I just need to run a few more tests." "Good, because I have an idea," Lyra said, stepping away from the console. "If we can integrate your algorithm with our adaptive filters, we might be able to achieve the stability we've been seeking." "You want to merge the two systems?" Alex asked, intrigued. "Precisely, but it will require precise calibration. The filters need to adjust in real time as the algorithm runs," Lyra explained. "Sounds like a delicate balance," Marcus said. "But it might work." Alex nodded. "All right, I'll finish the algorithm. Marcus, you handle the hardware adjustments. Lyra, if you can get the adaptive filters ready, we'll run a new simulation." They set to work, each focusing on their part of the puzzle. The lab buzzed with quiet determination as they worked together, exchanging ideas and making adjustments. Alex and Marcus bounced suggestions back and forth, tweaking the hardware to ensure seamless integration with Lyra's filters. Despite the challenges, their growing camaraderie kept them moving forward. After several hours of fine-tuning, they finally reached a point where they were ready to test the system. "All right," Alex said, standing at the control panel. "Moment of truth. Running the simulation now." The screen displayed a complex series of graphs and data streams. At first, the fluctuations appeared just as before, chaotic, unstable. But then, as the algorithm kicked in and the filters adjusted, the lines began to smooth out. The energy levels stabilized, holding steady for the first time. "It's working," Lyra said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "Not bad for a couple of humans, huh?" Marcus said with a grin. Alex chuckled. "It's not just us. We couldn't have done this without Lyra's input." Lyra glanced at him, her expression softening. "And I could not have done it without yours. This collaboration has proven more valuable than I expected." "Still," Marcus added, "I think we deserve a break now." Lyra looked at the two of them and nodded. "You're right. Let's take some time to rest. We've made significant progress today." As they left the lab together, the tension that had marked their initial interactions had faded. Instead, there was a sense of mutual respect and genuine teamwork. They were no longer just a group of individuals from different worlds. They were a team, working together to achieve something none of them could have done alone. Chapter 5: The Debate. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Delegates from dozens of star systems gathered in the tiered seating, the air filled with the soft hum of translation devices and quiet conversations in countless alien languages. The audience was here to see something unprecedented. A human team, led by Alex Reed and Marcus Lee, would present their joint findings alongside the renowned Thalrene scientist, Lyra. At the front of the auditorium, a massive holographic screen displayed rotating images of the energy matrix they had spent the last weeks developing. It hovered above a circular platform where Alex, Marcus, and Lyra stood, finalizing their notes before the presentation began. Marcus adjusted his headset and leaned toward Alex. "How's your stomach? I feel like mine's doing somersaults." Alex smirked. "Could be worse. At least we know the material backward and forward, right?" "Sure," Marcus said, exhaling sharply. "But it's not every day you face down a crowd of alien geniuses who think you're out of your depth." Lyra, standing on Alex's other side, tilted her head slightly. "You're both more prepared than you give yourselves credit for. This isn't about convincing them we belong. It's about presenting the work." Alex nodded. "She's right. Let's just focus on the problem and the solution. Everything else is noise." The lights dimmed, and the hum of the audience faded into silence. The moderator, a tall, elegant alien with a crystalline mane, stepped forward onto the stage and addressed the crowd in a melodious voice that translated seamlessly into every attendee's language. "Esteemed delegates," the moderator began, "we have gathered here today to witness a unique collaboration. A human team and a Thalrene scientist have worked together to ta. We now invite them to present their findings." Polite applause followed, and Lyra stepped forward first. She projected a detailed schematic of the energy matrix, explaining how the Thalrene's advanced algorithms and stabilizing nodes provided initial control over the chaotic quantum field. Her presentation was polished, her delivery precise. The audience listened intently, nodding along as she outlined the technical specifications and limitations of her people's traditional approach. Once she finished, she turned to Alex and Marcus. "And now, my human colleagues will explain their contribution." Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Our approach is, well, a bit more straightforward," he began. A few members of the audience chuckled. "But sometimes simplicity has its own elegance. What we've done is adapt the modular redundancy principle, something commonly used in Earth's industrial systems, and integrate it with Lyra's stabilizers. Instead of relying solely on precision control, we've introduced layers of fail-safes and feedback loops that can adjust dynamically as the environment changes." Marcus gestured to the hologram, which shifted to display their modular design. Each module operates semi-independently, so if one encounters a fluctuation it can't handle, the others compensate. Over time, the entire network learns and adapts, becoming more stable with each cycle. Alex nodded. "It's not about perfection. It's about finding a functional balance. With this hybrid approach, we can achieve a stable energy output without having to micromanage every variable." When they finished, the audience erupted into a mixture of applause and murmurs. Several delegates leaned toward each other, pointing at the hologram and whispering. The moderator stepped forward again. "Thank you, Dr. Reed, Dr. Lee, and Lyra. The floor is now open for questions." A tall, insect-like alien with shimmering wings rose first. "How do you address the risk of system collapse if multiple modules fail simultaneously?" Marcus answered. "That's where the redundancy comes in. Each module has a backup process that kicks in before complete failure. Even if 2 or 3 modules go offline, the system can redistribute the load and continue running until the offline modules are repaired." Another delegate, a broad-shouldered reptilian with scales that glinted under the lights, stood next. "Your approach is unconventional. Why not simply refine the existing Thalrene methods rather than introduce this modular concept?" Alex stepped in. "We considered that, but the core problem isn't just about refining control. It's about creating a system that can handle unexpected changes. By combining our methods, we've added flexibility and adaptability. It's not about replacing Thalreen expertise. It's about enhancing it. The questions continued for nearly an hour, with Alex, Marcus, and Lyra responding in turn. By the end of the session, the mood in the auditorium had shifted. Delegates from various species exchanged data and notes, already discussing how they could apply these concepts to their own challenges. As the session concluded, the moderator addressed the crowd once more. This has been an extraordinary example of interspecies collaboration. Let us hope it inspires more such efforts in the future. The applause was louder this time, and as Alex stepped off the platform, he felt a sense of relief mixed with exhilaration. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "I think we did it, man." Lyra, standing beside them, gave a small smile. "You did more than that. You've opened minds. Mine included." Alex glanced at her. "I'd say we all learned something today." Marcus looked around the bustling room as delegates began to leave. "I think we earned ourselves a drink." Lyra arched a brow. "I was under the impression humans only drank socially." "Exactly," Marcus said. "And after all this, we're practically family now." The three of them laughed as they made their way out, ready to celebrate the small but meaningful victory they had achieved together. Chapter 6. Cultural Revelation. The planet Lyra called home, Thalrien, came into view as the shuttle pierced through the thin veil of the upper atmosphere. Through the viewport, Alex could see massive floating cities resting above oceans of silver-blue water. The city's buildings were angular and sleek, their metallic surfaces reflecting light in hues of green and gold. Suspended bridges connected platforms that hovered in place, seemingly defying gravity. It looked nothing like Earth. Alex turned to Marcus, who was craning his neck to take in the sights. "Pretty different from New York or London, huh?" Marcus gave a low whistle. "I'd say so. Imagine the engineering it took to get this floating architecture stable." Lyra, seated across from them, glanced up from the tablet she'd been reviewing. "It was a long process," she said. "Centuries of refinement. Thalreen architects and scientists worked together to perfect the technology. The surface below, while not uninhabitable, is volatile, prone to seismic activity. The floating cities were our solution." Marcus leaned toward the window, his curiosity uncontained. "And the water? That's not ordinary, is it?" "It's rich in metallic ions," Lyra explained. "It's one of our primary sources of raw materials. Our harvesting systems extract and refine those metals for use in everything from construction to advanced circuitry." Alex raised a brow. "So you're not just floating above the problems, you're also using what's below to keep everything running." "Exactly," Lyra said, her tone neutral but tinged with a hint of pride. "We've built our society on stability, physically and structurally." The shuttle docked at a platform, and the trio disembarked. As they stepped out, Alex and Marcus took in their surroundings. The air was cool and carried a faint metallic tang, a stark contrast to the earthy sense of Earth cities. Thalreen citizens moved gracefully through the streets, their blue-tinged skin catching the ambient light. Some glanced curiously at the humans, but most continued on their way, engrossed in their own affairs. "Where to first?" Marcus asked, glancing around. "Please tell me it's not straight to another lab." Lyra shook her head. "There's something I want you to see first." She led them through a series of walkways and up a short lift, bringing them to a vast observation deck. From this height, they could see the full scope of the city, its platforms layered like petals of a flower, each bustling with activity. Smaller craft flitted between them, and the faint hum of engines filled the air. "This," Lyra said, gesturing to the view, "is what we've built. A place where technology and culture thrive together. A place where we've sought balance between tradition and innovation." Alex stepped closer to the railing. "It's incredible, but I have to ask, what happens if something goes wrong?" Lyra regarded him carefully. "It's not a question we take lightly. Every structure has multiple fail-safes. Every platform can be moved, adjusted, or even dismantled if necessary. Adaptability is key." Marcus nudged Alex. "Sounds familiar, doesn't it?" Like what we've been talking about with the energy matrix. Lyra nodded. Precisely. That's why I wanted you to see this first. Our world is built on a foundation of interconnected systems. Each component is important, but none are irreplaceable. That's why I believe your approach, your human perspective, can offer something new to our way of thinking. They spent the rest of the day exploring the city. Lyra took them to a cultural district where artisans worked with shimmering metals, shaping them into intricate sculptures and jewelry. Marcus couldn't help but ask questions at every turn, his fascination with the Thalrine's craftsmanship growing by the minute. So you mean to tell me this piece here, he said, pointing to a small, glowing sphere on a craftsman's table, isn't just decorative? It has a function. The artisan, a wiry Thalrine with sharp, angular features, nodded. It amplifies communication signals. Many of our pieces are both art and utility. Marcus turned to Alex. Imagine if Earth's artists made smartphones that doubled as sculptures. That would shake up the tech world. Alex chuckled. Maybe we'll see it someday. Lyra smiled faintly. You see, we don't separate form and function. To us, they are two parts of the same whole. By the time evening fell, the trio found themselves at an open-air plaza. The sky above was a deep purple, streaked with ribbons of green light. A fountain in the center of the plaza sent jets of glowing water into the air, and groups of Thalrines sat on benches, talking, laughing, and exchanging stories. It's hard not to be impressed, Alex said, leaning against a railing. Your culture, your technology. It's all so interconnected. Lyra turned to him. And yet, it is incomplete. That's why we seek out others, why we come to these conferences. What we have here is strong, but it's not enough to face every challenge. Collaboration is how we grow. Marcus leaned back, his hands in his pockets. Sounds like we're here at the right time. Lyra nodded. You are. And I'm starting to believe that together, we can create something neither of us could have imagined on our own. Chapter 7. An unexpected turn. Back on the station, the atmosphere in the control room was charged. Engineers from various species manned their stations, and the ambient hum of machinery was overlaid by the faint buzz of multiple conversations in different languages. Alex, Marcus, and Lyra stood at the central console, reviewing the data streaming across several holographic displays. What's causing the instability? Marcus asked, squinting at the screen. Lyra tapped a section of the projection. There's a surge in the quantum field. It's affecting the energy matrix, pushing it beyond the parameters we calculated. If we don't stabilize it, the entire system could fail. Alex ran a hand through his hair. How much time do we have? Minutes, Lyra said grimly. The room suddenly shook, a subtle tremor that set the hanging lights swaying. The conversations around them grew more urgent. Alex tightened his grip on the edge of the console. Great. No pressure. Marcus cracked his knuckles and pulled up another display. Okay, think. We've got modular components. If we isolate the module at the heart of the surge, maybe we can route the excess energy around it. Lyra frowned. We don't have enough time to recalibrate the entire network. Not the whole network, Alex interjected, his voice quick and focused. Just the key connections. Marcus, if you and I reroute the feeds manually module by module, we might buy ourselves the time to stabilize the field. Lyra, can you program the adaptive filters to handle the fluctuating load as we shift it? She nodded sharply. I can try, but if it goes wrong, the surge will cascade. Then it can't go wrong, Marcus said, already moving to the nearest access panel. Lyra began working on the console, her fingers moving with precision. Alex followed Marcus to the panel, pulling it open to reveal a cluster of glowing circuits. The wiring looked like a chaotic mess to an untrained eye, but Alex had spent enough time studying the schematics to know where to start. Hand me the calibrator, Alex said, holding out his hand. Marcus passed him the tool. You really think this will work? It has to, Alex muttered. He adjusted a series of connections, his eyes darting between the circuits and the holographic interface on his tablet. The modular design they'd worked so hard on was supposed to prevent this kind of crisis, but it had never been tested under conditions this extreme. First bypass done, Alex said after a tense minute. Let's move to the next one. The two of them hustled to the adjacent panel, dodging a technician rushing by with a bundle of cables. Overhead, the lights flickered again, and a low, ominous hum began to rise in the room. Marcus crouched down, prying the panel open. Okay, what's next? Redirect the feed to the tertiary relay, Alex instructed. It's not ideal, but it should handle the load temporarily. As Marcus worked, Alex glanced over his shoulder. Lyra, how's it looking on your end? Her voice came through crisp, despite the rising tension. Filters are adjusting, but the fluctuations are intensifying. Whatever you're doing, you need to finish it quickly. No problem, Marcus said, his voice forcefully cheerful. We're just playing the world's highest stakes game of connect the dots over here. Alex shot him a quick grin. Don't mess it up then. One by one, they completed the rerouting. Each module they adjusted eased the pressure on the system, but the overall load still teetered on the edge of failure. Lyra called out, "Final connection point. Once you reroute the last feed, I'll initiate a controlled reset of the filters." Got it. Alex and Marcus sprinted to the last panel. Sweat beaded on Alex's forehead as he worked the tools, his hands moving as fast as he dared. Marcus stood ready with the calibrator, watching the numbers on the screen. Alex, you're gonna hate me, but... Marcus hesitated. What? Alex said without looking up. We're overloading the tertiary relay. It's buckling under the strain. Alex cursed under his breath. Okay, plan B. We sacrifice one module to keep the others running. Lyra, can the filters handle a temporary gap in the network? It will be risky, but it's possible, she replied. Marcus frowned. What if the surge is too strong for the remaining modules? It won't be, Alex said, his voice firm, because we're not giving it the chance. Let's cut the connection on this module and run the energy through the secondary pathways. Lyra, prep the filters now. She didn't respond, but her fingers flew over the console. Alex finished his adjustments. Marcus, hit it. Marcus toggled the last switch, and the room fell silent for a split second. Then the low hum subsided, replaced by the steady, stable rhythm of the system back online. The overhead lights brightened, and the data on the main screen smoothed out into orderly patterns. System stable, Lyra confirmed. There was a collective exhale from everyone in the control room. Alex leaned back against the panel, his breathing heavy. Well, that was fun. Yeah, Marcus said, wiping his brow. Let's never do that again. Lyra approached them, her usual calm demeanor softened by a rare smile. You both performed exceptionally. The entire station owes you a great deal. Just part of the job, Marcus said with a grin. Alex shook his head. No, it was teamwork, pure and simple. Lyra regarded them both. I think this experience has shown us something important. When we combine our strengths, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. Alex exchanged a look with Marcus, who just smirked. She's right, you know, Marcus said. We made a pretty good team. Chapter 8. A New Dawn. Alex Reed and Marcus Lee stood in the heart of the station's central forum, the vast chamber now transformed into a space for celebration. The once sterile environment was adorned with holographic displays of planetary systems and luminous banners bearing the emblems of various civilizations. Delegates from dozens of species mingled, their voices blending into a symphony of languages and laughter. It was an unexpected sight. Representatives from worlds that barely acknowledged each other weeks ago now sharing drinks and stories. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his formal suit, pulling at the stiff collar. You think anyone remembers how close we came to losing the entire system? Marcus grinned, holding up a glass of something bright blue that sparkled faintly. Not a chance. They're too busy enjoying themselves. And hey, we earned this. Earned what, exactly? Alex asked, taking a sip of his own drink, water, since he still didn't trust half the alien concoctions. A pat on the back and a warm, fuzzy feeling? A little recognition, Marcus said, gesturing at the crowd. Look around. I don't see anyone sneering at us like we don't belong anymore. In fact, he nodded toward a cluster of Thalrene delegates who glanced their way with respectful nods. We're practically celebrities. Don't let it go to your head, Alex said, though he couldn't help the small smile creeping onto his face. Before Marcus could respond, Lyra approached them. She looked as poised as ever, though her usually reserved demeanor had softened. You two seem to be enjoying yourselves. Marcus raised his glass. How could we not? It's not every day you save a station and get invited to the after-party. Your contributions were significant, Lyra said. But you both already know that. Alex cleared his throat, slightly uncomfortable with the praise. We just did what we had to do. That's what makes it meaningful, Lyra replied. Her gaze lingered on Alex for a moment, and he felt a slight heat rise in his face. But tonight isn't about work. It's about acknowledging what's been accomplished. I'll drink to that, Marcus said, draining his glass. Speaking of which, I'm gonna see what other beverages these folks have to offer. I'll catch you two later. He wandered off into the crowd, leaving Alex and Lyra alone. The buzz of the room seemed to fade slightly as Alex looked at Lyra. You know, I never expected to end up here, of all places, especially not as part of a team like this. Neither did I, Lyra admitted. When we first met, I saw you as unconventional, perhaps even reckless. But you've proven that innovation often comes from unexpected sources. I could say the same about you, Alex replied. You're not exactly what I pictured when I thought of an alien scientist. Oh, Lyra tilted her head slightly, a hint of curiosity in her tone. And what did you picture? Alex chuckled. Something more, I don't know, cold and clinical. Not someone who's willing to take risks and think outside the box. Lyra's expression softened. I've learned that thinking outside the box is often where progress happens. And I've also learned that working with you has been surprisingly rewarding. Alex felt a twinge of nervousness. Well, you've taught me a lot too. About how advanced systems can be, how different perspectives can complement each other, and, well, a lot of things. A pause hung between them, filled only by the distant hum of the crowd. Then Lyra stepped closer, her voice quieter. I think our collaboration has shown that the lines we draw between us, between species, between cultures, aren't as significant as we think. We're more alike than we realize. Yeah, Alex said softly. I think so too. For a moment, they just stood there, the alien celebration continuing around them. Then Lyra reached out, her hand lightly touching Alex's. The gesture was small, subtle, but it carried a weight that words couldn't. Alex glanced down, surprised at first, but then he let his fingers curl around hers. I'm glad we had this chance to work together, to see what's possible when we stop looking at each other as primitive or advanced, and just see each other as people. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time, Alex thought he saw something that wasn't purely analytical or professional. I'm glad too, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud cheer from the other side of the room, where Marcus had apparently joined a group of delegates trying to teach him an alien dance. Alex laughed, the moment easing. Looks like Marcus is making friends. Lyra smiled. It seems so. As the festivities continued, Alex and Lyra stayed close, their words shifting from technical discussions to shared experiences and stories of their respective worlds. It was a small step, but one that hinted at something new, a connection that extended beyond the scientific and into something more personal.